Every Yakuza fan knows one sound and one sound only. It's beyond iconic at this point. You hear it so many times across all the games that it becomes comical. You really stop taking it seriously at some point. But then there's the occasional sub-story that really does tug at your heartstrings. Sub-stories that really provoked visceral emotions out of you, that had you thinking existentially about life after finishing them. And in this video, I'm going to go over all the sub-stories that did exactly that for me. It's not often that a sub-story or side quest in a video game really makes me stop and think, so these sub-stories are really resonant. So without further ado, let's get into it. We're going to start with what's easily the saddest Majima sub-story in Yakuza 0. In order to trigger it, you have to walk up to a man staring at a mother and her child in Ashitaba Park, which is in the central part of Sotenborg. As soon as the sub-story triggers, a ball is thrown in your direction, and the child asks you to throw it back at him. Then the man asks you if he can throw the ball instead, only for Majima to ignore him and throw the ball anyway, much to the man's disappointment. Then a curious Majima proceeds to ask him why he's so down in the dumps. Then we find out that the child and the mother are this dude's wife and son, and the reason why they didn't recognize him is because he literally had his face surgically altered so he could assume a new life as a different person to the one that he was before. Why, you may ask? Well, he got involved in some Yakuza conflict, a conflict that was so bad that it made him surgically alter his face, so those Yakuza don't recognize him anymore, presumably. Or maybe he made an agreement with those Yakuza that they leave him alone as long as he takes on a new life, being a completely new person? I honestly don't know because he doesn't give us a lot of details on why or how he got involved in some Yakuza drama, but I guess he told us everything that we need to know to understand his situation. He can't see his family again because that would put them in danger. Because if he reconciled with his family, his past identity would be revealed. So to substitute for his lack of relationship with his son and wife, he watches them from afar playing baseball together every single day. Majima, now understanding the predicament that this man is in, apologizes for foiling his chance at throwing the ball back to his son. After telling him it's no sweat, the man and Majima part ways, wishing each other the best. But then you eventually meet him again after spending some time away from the park, only to find him staring once more at his family from a past life, except it's not his whole family, and it's only his son because his mother is at work. So he's just playing by himself in the park without any friends or companions. With that in mind, Majima comes up with the bright idea of himself and Akatani spending time with this kid to keep him company, with the plus side being that he gets to spend some time with his son again, whose name is Yusuke, by the way. So they walk up to him and ask Yusuke what he's up to which he then tells them that he's staring at ants, which is something he does when his mother isn't around to play with him. And then he mentions the fact that he used to play with his father a lot, going on to say that he really misses him, obviously not knowing that his dad is right there, right now, standing in front of him with a surgically altered face. Majima and Akatani then offer to keep him company, much to the child's delight. After they play together for a while, Yusuke thanks Majima and Akatani for keeping him company, and then he leaves to go home. Akatani then expresses his immense gratitude to Majima for giving him a chance to spend some time with his son again. They part ways again after exchanging goodbyes. Then the camera pans to a shot of two suspicious-looking fellows, which is a sort of foreshadowing on what's about to happen next in this sub-story. In order to trigger it again, you have to once again leave the park and then come back. Once you come back, you're greeted by Akatani's wife, who is wondering where her child is after not finding him in his usual spot in the park. Then both of them proceed to look for him. After doing some looking, you eventually find him in the outdoor mall in the southeast area of Sotenborg. He then tells Majima that he was approached by a bunch of scary looking guys, then ran away as far as he could from them. He also mentions that they kept calling him Akatani's brat, which is basically the not so subtle hint that Akatani's new identity is a bit compromised. Majima and Yusuke eventually make their way back to the park, only to find some Yakuza holding Akatani's wife hostage.
Huh?
What kind of fucked up logic is that? I'm pretty sure that even if these people were truly strangers to Akatani, he'd still definitely mind if you tried to rough them up, quote unquote. I mean, you're literally threatening to harm a mother and a child. I don't think any sane person would just ignore that because they're strangers. Anyway, strange remarks aside, these Yakuza try to set up a bargain with Akatani where if Akatani kills himself with a knife they throw over to him, they'll leave his wife and child alone. But I mean, come on, this is a fucking Yakuza game, so obviously that's not about to happen while Majima is in their vicinity. So Majima gives them a good old beating and then they scatter. Majima then suggests that Akatani speaks to his wife and son even if they don't recognize him.
Yeah.
You know, when I first started playing through this sub-story, I didn't really understand why a lot of people in the fan base thought it was sad and heartbreaking. I felt that way until I got to the ending. That ending that you just saw was what did it for me. Akatani will never be able to see his wife and child again because that would put them in grave danger, and it's pretty clear that his son isn't completely oblivious to the fact that Akatani is actually his father, but since he's a child, he can't really articulate that feeling slash hunch. So in a bid to act on his desire to spend time with his father, he throws the ball to him, but Akatani can't turn back for reasons previously mentioned. It's probably no mistake that this sub-story kind of mirrors Majima and Makoto's story. Majima can't have a relationship with Makoto because he's a Yakuza and she's a civilian. Akatani can't have a relationship with his wife and son because he's in too deep with the underworld too. So yeah, this sub-story is really sad for those reasons. The next sub-story we're going to talk about involves snow, specifically snow in Hawaii. Yeah, you heard that right, snow in Hawaii. Sounds ridiculous, right? But which Yakuza character is known, to do the most ridiculous shit? Well, multiple characters would come to mind, but I was mainly referring to Ichiban Kasuga. So this sub-story is very fitting for Ichiban in that regard. The sub-story starts with Ichiban approaching a man yelling at an employee working for an ice smoothie store, commanding him to give him plain shaved ice. Then he throws the ice into the air.
Huh?
We eventually find out that this man, whose name is Orlando by the way, is trying to find some ice that he can turn into snow so his wife can see freshly fallen snow before she succumbs to her illness. This sub-story just took a really somber turn. Yeah, his wife has an unnamed incurable disease and is slowly losing herself along the way. And of course, because Ichiban is Ichiban, he's going to help this guy. But is Ichiban going to make it snow in Hawaii of all places? Well, it's very difficult to answer that question because the next sequence of events in this sub-story is going to make your head spin, so bear with me, okay? Initially, Ichiban goes to the mall, but then this happens.
Huh? Majika.
So Ichiban chases that baby carriage, only to find that there's no baby inside it, instead finding a giant man baby. The same man baby from that Yakuza 2 sub-story. For the non-Yakuza fans watching this man baby is actually a Yakuza patriarch and his name is Gondowara. And him and his men love dressing up as babies because, well, actually I don't know why they like doing this, but that's not the point of this video. All you need to know is that they love dressing up as babies and pretending to be babies, and they happen to be in Hawaii for vacation. After talking for a bit, he starts falling asleep, and that's when his subordinates arrive, thinking Ichiban kidnapped their boss. And you know the rest. They fight, and then the misunderstanding is resolved, which is when Gondawara wakes up. After scolding them for fighting Ichiban, Gondawara orders his boys to get them shaved ice, only for them to run into Orlando. Orlando then explains to Ichiban and the man babies that his wife's doctor told him that she pretty much has one more night left to live, so he didn't have time to wait for Ichiban anymore. And Ichiban throws his shaved ice on the ground in a fit of anger. So the diaper absorbent mixing with the shaved ice caused a chemical reaction that kind of looks like snow, and yeah, I think you can see where this is going. Ichiban and Gondawara's boys talk about how they plan to collect tons of ice in that diaper powder so they can make it look like it's snowing for Orlando's wife. Orlando opens the door to his wife's room. He starts talking to her candidly about him meeting Ichiban and how great of a guy he is. He also talks about his guilt about not spending enough time with her because of how much of a workaholic he was.
ずっと家にもいないで仕事ばかりして寂しい思いをさせてしまった。
After opening the window, she eventually wakes up. And you know what? I'm just gonna let this scene play out, because the impact can only be felt if you see it for yourself.
だからそんな顔しないで。綺麗。
ありがとう、春日さん、組長さん。
本当に雪が見られるなんて、日本で2人で見たあの日を思い出すわ。本当に綺麗。オーランド、あなた魔法が使えたのね。知らなかったわ。
もちろんだ。わしはエリーのためなら何だってできるさ。魔法使いにだってなれる。このくらい遊べしまえだよ。だからもっとしてほしいことはないか。何でも言ってくれ。お願いだから。
でももう十分よ。こんな素敵な贈り物をもらって、私は世界一の幸せ者ね。ありがとう。
Now, isn't that just a tearjerker? A husband that would like to fulfill his dying wife's last wish and then actually doing it with the help of a few crazy but noble gentlemen? That's easily the most Yakuza thing of all time. But that's actually not where the sub-story ends. It ends with Orlando's wife making one last request.
それじゃあ最後のお願い。
なんだい。
笑ってちょうだい。あなたの笑顔を見ながら眠りたいの。せっかく綺麗な雪なのに、王子様がそんな顔じゃ台無しだものね。だからお願い。
ああ、そうだね。うん、その通りだ。ゆっくりおやすみ、エリー。
If that doesn't elicit any feelings out of you, then I'd really like to know why, actually, because who would that not possibly elicit feelings out of? Okay, we're talking about another Ichiban sub-story, ladies, gentlemen, and everyone in between. Just like Man with a Stranger's Face in Yakuza 0, this sub-story only really punches you in the heart at the end. So, it starts with Ichiban being stopped by a woman in a white dress. The woman talks to Ichiban as if they know each other, only for Ichiban to be very confused, so she clarifies and tells him that she's someone that Ichiban rescued a long time ago. And by a long time ago, I mean 20 years ago, because it was before Ichiban went to prison. And apparently, she had an illness that prevented her from being able to go outside, which is why Ichiban never saw her again after he supposedly rescued her. Since the woman is so eager to finally see Ichiban again, Ichiban decides to fulfill her desire of wanting to spend the day together. So that's exactly what they do. First they go to an arcade, they play games, they take pictures, and have a lot of fun. That's weird. Why was the employee watching Ichiban and the woman in the white dress? Does he think the woman Ichiban is with isn't actually a woman and is underage? Does he think Ichiban is being creepy? I guess it doesn't matter because Ichiban and this woman are having a lot of fun and they're going to continue having a lot of fun. So let's talk about what they do next. They go to a cafe next to have a bite to eat.
なあ
Okay, that's even weirder. Why does the waitress just ignore Kaade as if she isn't there? Well, I guess we shouldn't care because both Ichiban and Kaade ignore that transgression and order something to eat anyway. Their food arrives and they continue conversing, and Kaade brings up a very random but interesting topic.
Huh?
Okay, she just got really existential on us. And what did she mean by, I wish I could have done that? Is Ichiban having a really weird dream where he meets a very weird woman in a white dress? Because that's the only plausible explanation at this point. Anyway, that aside, after finishing lunch, they take a stroll with each other on a busy street, only to run into a bunch of thugs wanting to rob them. And before they fight, Ichiban tells Kaade to stand back. Oh, that was an interesting moment. Kaade just got a sense of deja vu, which makes sense because she did say Ichiban rescued her way back when. Anyway, Ichiban beats those guys up, and then after they run away, Kaade comes back to chop it up with Ichiban more.
大丈夫か楓ちゃん
春日さん、はい大丈夫です。また助けてもらっちゃいましたね。あの頃と同じ。やっぱり春日さんは私のヒーローです。
Aww, that's a very cute moment, but something doesn't feel right. The vibe just feels off, like something bad's about to happen.
なんだか暗くなってきましたね。そろそろデートも終わりかな。ねえ、春日さん。最後に行きたいところがあるんです。もう少しだけ付き合ってもらっていいですか？
ああ
So they spend their last moments at the Yokohama pier. They talk about how stunning the view is, and then she starts to talk about how she used to watch Ichi from her hospital room.
でも私、病室からは春日さんのことよく見てたんですよ。
えそうなの
いつも外から春日さんの声が聞こえてきて、最初はうるさいなーなんて思ってたんですけどね。釣り銭返せとか、まだ蜜が食べてるだろうがとか、毎日いろんな声を聞いてました。
昔からしまらねえな俺が。
And she reveals that she actually developed feelings for Ichiban.
そのままで十分です。だって私はそんな春日さんのことがずっと好きだったんですから。
いやだがそんな急に言われても マジか。
慌てすぎですよ。ねえ春日さん、私の分もこれからずっとずっと長生きしてくださいね。
え？
ちょっとあんた、
ん？
夜に何一人で騒いでいるんだ？
ああ、すんません。でも別に一人ってわけじゃ。またいつか会えるよな。
Wow. So that was disturbingly deep. We don't know if that woman was actually a ghost or a figment of Ichiban's imagination. Either scenario is equally heartbreaking, honestly. If we're going to go with her actually being a ghost, then that would mean that this sub-story's message is really about mortality and the fact that life has a limit, something that most of us don't think about on a regular basis. Which is why when you're reminded of your own mortality, it hits you like a bunch of bricks. But that's the first interpretation I mentioned. What about the second one? If we're going with her actually being a figment of Ichiban's imagination, then that means that this sub-story is basically about Ichiban's conscious trying to tell him something. His conscious trying to send him a message subtly. What that message may be, I don't know. Maybe subconsciously Ichiban feels existential about life but can't or doesn't know how to acknowledge it. That could also be why he hallucinates so much, because he disassociates from reality so much so that he starts to hallucinate his own reality, basically taking existentialism to a whole new level. I guess that wouldn't really be an existentialist mode of thinking. The more accurate label would be, you know, absurdist or surrealist. But now I'm getting into the weeds of psychoanalyzing a video game character, so I'll just stop right there for now. Maybe I'll make a video solely dedicated to the topic of the Yakuza series and some of its existentialist themes. But for now, let's bring it back to the main topic, sub-stories and the sub-story we were talking about. All in all, I think this sub-story says a lot more than what's on the surface if you think about it a little bit more. It could say a lot about Ichiban or just the topic of mortality in general, which is why it feels so sad, because while those topics aren't inherently sad, we perceive them that way. Death is really sad, and existentialism is sad too, at least if you don't know about it to its fullest extent. And that's why it's one of the saddest Yakuza sub-stories, in my opinion. Okay, let's talk about the sub-story I consider to be the saddest in the whole series. And trust me, you will know why by the end of this video. The sub-story starts with Kiryu trying to get a drink at the Bantam bar. He proceeds to sit on one of the bar stools only to be stopped by the bartender, warning that the seat Kiryu wants to sit on is reserved. So he decides to take another seat, and then this happens.
今までどこに行ってたのよ。
Okay, that was extremely random and weird. Is this woman some sort of psycho? You're probably thinking that to yourself after watching that wild-ass scene, which is understandable given the fact that she just walked into this bar to slap a man she doesn't know. Or maybe she does know him? Okay, things just got even weirder. After slapping him, she then starts talking to him as if they know each other. And obviously Kiryu, beyond confused on some Thanos Scarlet Witch type shit, repeatedly tells her that he has no idea who she actually is. But I guess we know her name now, that name being Chigusa. According to Chigusa, Kiryu apparently promised her that he'd come back to Kamurocho and that they could finally be together again. Which suggests that whoever she's confusing Kiryu for is in a romantic relationship with her, supposedly. Anyway, Kiryu continues to voice his confusion, only for her to say that this act might be another one of his lies, which is another clue about the relationship she had with whoever she's confusing Kiryu with. Kiryu, tired of repeating himself, suggests that he can help her look for the guy she's actually looking for, only for her to continue bickering about his supposed lies. Then she suggests that they go someplace to refresh his memory, so Chigusa and Kiryu then leave for a bowling alley. According to Chigusa, it's a place they used to have a lot of dates at. It's also the place where they met for the first time time. According to her, the way they met is straight out of a boy meets girl movie. And then the manager of this bowling alley interrupts their conversation. Apparently he knows Chigusa and they haven't seen each other for a while, which prompts him to ask if she's feeling better. Better about what? We don't know. Maybe she was sick or something. Nonetheless, they keep catching up with one another until he brings up someone named Yusaku, and the fact that he found this guy's things in one of the bowling alley storage rooms. Okay, I think it's obvious what's being implied here. If you haven't figured it out yet already, then, well, just continue watching. After she leaves the bowling alley, the manager and Kiryu talk about this Yusaku guy, and he admits that Kiryu does kind of look like him. He also mentions the fact that Yusaku was Chigusa's boyfriend. It doesn't get much clearer than that, guys. It really doesn't. Anyway, the manager then asks Kiryu to keep Chigusa company because she's clearly going through a lot, and Kiryu, being the stand-up guy that he is, obliges. Kiryu and Chigusa eventually find themselves in an office that they apparently used to run an import store in. And after the same routine of her thinking that Kiryu is Yusaku and Kiryu being very confused, some landlords come in, claiming that their lease ran out months ago. And Kiryu does what he does best and beats their asses out of the room. Then Kiryu does his usual stick of apologizing for messing everything up in the room, only to be interrupted by a noise coming from the phone on the desk. And then the sub-story just hits you like a ton of bricks. If you didn't figure it out already, Yusaku passed away. Chigusa hasn't accepted that, and that's actually very relatable to me. My dog of 8 years, Luna, passed away just over a year ago on January 15th, 2025. It was the worst day of my life. When I found out, it was like someone shot a bullet through my chest. It felt like I was living in an alternate reality. A very dark alternate reality. There's a finality to the death of a loved one that the mind just can't seem to comprehend. I still can't wrap my head around the fact that my dog is not alive anymore and hasn't been alive for over a year now. I still wake up in my bed expecting her to be there by my side. Whenever I go to my bedroom, I expect her to be there, sitting on the bed, just waiting for me. Whenever I'm planning out my schedule for the week, my mind always jumps to taking her for a walk as one of my breaks. I miss Luna, but a part of me has accepted that she's not alive anymore. I saw a Reddit comment once that was talking about grief, and it said that your mind doesn't accept that your loved one is gone. It just gives up on trying to hold on to what's not there. I can't quite remember which Reddit thread I saw it on specifically, but that really put succinctly into words what grieving feels like at the end. And it seems like Chigusa hasn't reached that stage yet. And I can relate. It takes a really, really long time, and your brain has gone through an endless amount of back and forth, thinking of scenarios in which you could have saved your loved one. The what ifs, and maybe sometimes pretending that they're still alive as a form of coping with their death, like Chigusa did. It really, really hurts, and you feel like you lost something that was an integral part of you. So I get it. Eventually, Yusaku's voice recording mentions that he left an envelope with a pickup slip inside of it, and that she should take it to a jewelry store. And then he says goodbye one final time. Chigusa still can't accept it, but she will sooner rather than later. Kiryu and Chigusa go to the jewelry store and eventually get what's on the pickup slip, and it's revealed that Yusaku got Chigusa an engagement ring. Kiryu and Chigusa eventually make it back to the bar, and then the bartender mentions that the seat Kiryu was sitting on was the seat Yusaku used to occupy after work every day to take the load off. And then he reveals that it's been a year since Yusaku passed away. And after a further struggle to do so, she finally accepts the fact that her boyfriend is gone and never coming back. After that, Kiryu and Chigusa bid each other goodbye. And that's how the sub-story ends. That was, in my opinion, the saddest sub-story in the Yakuza series. It just tugs at your heartstrings in a way that no other sub-story has ever done, especially because of how down-to-earth it is. Struggling to accept the death of a loved one, an experience that doesn't really end. Your mind just gives up on thinking about all of the possibilities that could have saved them. You get distracted by other things in life. And that concludes the video. I think all in all, what this video shows you is that the Yakuza series plays with the emotions of the player in a variety of ways through a variety of story tropes. And there really isn't any other series quite like it. And I mean it when I say that. I mean, can you think of any other video game series that features a side quest where you engineer a fake snowstorm with a bunch of grown men in diapers on top of an apartment building so that the window to a room featuring a dying woman can see the snow as her last wish before she dies? Simultaneously, it can also have ridiculous but still heartbreaking shit like that, along with the stuff that's just purely heartbreaking like the Chigusa sub-story. No other series does it like Yakuza. And obviously, if you have any other sub-stories that you think should have been in this video, comment that down below. I'd love to see what I missed, especially because since I'm not Devil Leon 7 or Cyric Z, I haven't completed every single sub-story in the whole series. So humor me. Aside from that, have a nice day or night wherever you are in the world.